So let's not dance around the truth. 2025 kicked off with one of the loudest, most annoying sagas in the UFC. Jon Jones avoiding Tom Aspinall like the plague. You couldn't scroll 2 seconds without hearing fans screaming, is Jon Jones finally going to fight Aspinall? Or is he retiring? Or is he still hiding behind a fake injury? It was a circus. But after months of cryptic tweets, coach interviews, and flat-out deflections, the man dipped. That's right, Jon Jones peaced out, officially retired, walked away with that belt like it was a souvenir, and left the real dogs in the yard to handle the mess he helped create. Now fast forward, and Tom Aspinall finally got what he deserved, a legit, undisputed heavyweight title fight. UFC 321, baby. He's set to go toe-to-toe with Ciryl Gane. And while it sounds good on paper, let's be brutally honest here. Gane isn't exactly the boogeyman of the heavyweight division. He's more like a mannequin with footwork. He's a name, sure, but not the guy that'll keep you up at night. We all saw his pitiful showing against Jon Jones. Gane basically walked into that cage and folded like a beach chair. And let's not forget that snail-paced, zero-impact fight with Francis Ngannou. The guy's been phoning it in, and now somehow he's back in the title picture like we all forgot? Please. But here's where it gets real. If Aspinall takes him out, and most of us are banking on that, what the hell happens next? Look around the heavyweight division. It's a friggin' wasteland. Ghost town. Every time you think, oh, here's a new contender, the guy either gets smoked or disappears for 9 months. No one's consistent. No one's hungry. There is, admittedly, one sliver of hope. The upcoming matchup between Alexander Volkov and Jailtown Almeida. Whoever wins that might be next in line. But let's break that down. If Volkov wins, great. You're getting a rematch with Aspinall. Reminder, Aspinall already steamrolled him. It wasn't even close. And if Almeida gets the W, that could be interesting, briefly. But let's be real, even then, Aspinall is going to walk in as a heavy favorite. And after that, it's just a big fat nothing. Derek Lewis? That's your next option? That's the guy? That's the fight that sells pay-per-views now? With all due respect, actually scratch that, no respect. Nobody wants to see that. Not even Derek Lewis wants to see that. This division is cooked. Burnt toast. Tom Aspinall is about to hit a dead-end road at full speed, and the UFC's got no exit plan. Now let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say the unthinkable happens. Tom Aspinall slips up. Ciryl Gane somehow, by miracle or fluke or whatever dark magic they use in France, wins the damn fight. That scenario, my friends, is straight-up nightmare fuel for every real MMA fan breathing. Because if that happens, you know exactly what follows. Jon Jones comes crawling back out of his golden retirement cave. And he won't come back with humility either. He'll strut in like he's still the king of everything, like he didn't duck Tom for a year straight. He's already been teasing a return. Back in the USADA testing pool, training again, posting those new motivation captions that scream midlife crisis. He even said he wants to fight at the White House. What is this, a Rocky movie? Nobody asked for that. But the UFC? Oh, they'll eat it up. So, here's how it plays out. Gane beats Aspinall. Jones returns. UFC books Gane versus Jones for the real title. And boom. Aspinall is left standing on the sidelines, holding that interim belt like a participation trophy. And then what? Jon Jones defends against washed-up contenders, reclaims his GOAT status with padded wins, and pretends none of this Tom Aspinall business ever happened. That's not just a bad timeline, it's insulting. We're basically one awkward Gane elbow away from Jon Jones reclaiming the throne he walked away from. And trust me, that throne ain't even warm anymore. Nobody wants that. Not the fans, not the fighters. Hell, not even Dana White deep down, though he'll definitely cash the checks. And let's talk about Gane. Because in this cursed timeline, he becomes champ again. And we've seen that story before. It's all flash, no kill. When you think about heavyweight champs, you picture savages, Miocic, Ngannou, Velasquez, killers. Gane? He's a ballerina in 4-ounce gloves. If he somehow wins and becomes the UFC's top dog, the division immediately loses its teeth. That belt becomes a prop, and every contender starts smelling blood in the water. Not because Gane's unbeatable, but because he's beatable as hell. Meanwhile,
Aspinall becomes the forgotten warrior. One stumble, and the whole division pretends he wasn't the most promising heavyweight we've seen in a decade. That's the curse of MMA. You're only as good as your last fight, and if your last fight is a loss, even a fluky one, they'll erase your name from the headline and start hyping up the next trending story. So yeah, we all better be praying that Tom Aspinall shows up in full killer mode. Because if Gane wins, this entire weight class is going straight into purgatory again.
Let's say everything goes according to plan. Tom Aspinall walks into UFC 321 and does what most of us expect. He smashes Ciryl Gane. Whether it's by TKO, submission, or just a brutal 25-minute clinic, he walks out undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Sounds amazing, right? Now ask yourself, who's next? Crickets. Look at the UFC rankings right now. After Gane, it's a complete joke. Volkov? Already finished by Aspinall. Almeida? Sure, he's got some hype, but let's not lie to ourselves. He's still green and would walk into that cage a huge underdog. Derek Lewis? That dude's been hanging on to relevance by dancing in post-fight interviews more than winning fights. And after that, it's a black hole, a void. There's no rising stars, no surging prospects, no scary dark horses in this division, just padded records and recycled names. That's why, believe it or not, the heavyweight division's best hope might actually be a frickin' light heavyweight. That's right, I'm talking about Alex Pereira, Mr. Left Hook from Hell himself. And before you roll your eyes, let's run the math. Pereira has already proven he's not just a striker, he's a killer. The guy went from middleweight champ to light heavyweight champ like it was nothing. He beats Jon, he takes out Yuri, and now he's about to face Ankalaev. If Pereira gets through that monster, there's nothing left at 205. Nothing that sells. Nothing that's new. So what does the UFC do? They do what they always do. They throw him to the wolves and hope he survives. But this time, the wolf is Tom Aspinall. And now you've got a real main event. A super fight. The kind of matchup that headlines a UFC 300 level card. You've got Pereira, potentially a two-weight champ, trying to do the unthinkable, become the first ever three-division champion in UFC history. Never been done. Not by GSP, not by Cormier, not even close. And Tom Aspinall? He gets his biggest payday, his biggest test, and finally, the respect that comes with beating a legitimate elite striker with more star power than anyone at heavyweight right now. Even if Pereira loses to Ankalaev, he still might go up. The guy's walking around at 242 pounds. He's massive. Cutting to 205 is only getting harder. You can see it in his face during weigh-ins. He's one bad cut away from collapsing. Moving up is inevitable. And once he's there, he's instantly the most dangerous striker in the entire heavyweight division. Why? Because these heavyweights are slow. Like snail on melatonin slow. Pereira would be faster, sharper, and have way better technique than 90% of that top 10 list. And the matchups? Oh man, Pereira versus Volkov, fireworks. Pereira versus Gane, chess match with violence. But the one we all want is Pereira versus Aspinall. That's not just a fight. That's a moment, a legacy-defining war. It's the kind of clash that saves a dying division. And believe me, heavyweight needs saving right now. Bad. Because if Pereira doesn't move up, what then? Aspinall's fighting one time a year against low-tier, one-dimensional opponents who bring zero drama, zero storylines, and zero danger? That's how stars fade. Not with a knockout loss, but with boredom, with irrelevance. And if the UFC doesn't move fast, they're going to waste one of the best heavyweights we've ever had because the bench is empty and no one's stepping up. So here's the Hail Mary. Let's say Pereira doesn't go up. Maybe Ankalaev shuts him down, dominates him, and leaves no doubt about who's king at 205. What then? Does that mean Pereira's done with the three-division dream? Not necessarily, but even if he is, the UFC's not completely out of options. There's still Ankalaev. Now let's talk real. This dude is a tank. Cold, calculated, zero emotions, zero flash, all punishment.
He doesn't care if you're flashy like Pereira or wild like Prochaska. He grinds you down like a machine. Ankalaev, if he beats Pereira and then beats Ciryl Gane, he might very well clean out 205. After that, the move is obvious. Go up to heavyweight. Not because he wants to be a star, he doesn't care about fame, he just wants gold. And where's the next belt? Exactly. Ankalaev versus Aspinall is the most violent technical matchup possible in this era. No trash talk, no fake hype, just pure, ice-cold destruction. Both guys are elite everywhere. Ankalaev's sambo and striking IQ versus Aspinall's freakish speed and movement. That's a fight for the hardcore purists, and it might be the only real threat left for Aspinall in the next 2 years. But here's the painful truth. Even if that happens, even if Ankalaev goes up, it's still one fight. Just one. You've got the Gane defense, maybe a Pereira showdown, maybe Ankalaev, possibly Almeida. You can count those big fights on one hand. That's terrifying for a division that's supposed to be the most dangerous in combat sports. The UFC can't run a heavyweight division off a 4-fight fantasy bracket. That's a joke. What happens after all that? Who's left? Nobody. The cupboard is bare. That's where the real danger lies. Because Aspinall isn't some aging journeyman with a couple of years left in the tank. He's 31. He's in his prime. He could hold this belt for 5 years if there were people to challenge him. But there aren't. And boredom kills careers faster than injuries. If the UFC doesn't act fast, if they don't start poaching killers from other promotions like the PFL, ONE, or regional circuits, then this division will flatline. They need to start investing in monsters, wrestlers, strikers, heavy hitters, fresh blood. They should be flying guys in from Dagestan, Brazil, Africa, the Balkans, wherever they can find freak athletes who can make 120 kilos and fight like maniacs. Because if they don't, Aspinall's legacy is going to suffer, and the belt will mean nothing. And let's talk facts. The UFC's done this before. They let divisions rot. They let flyweight stagnate before Moreno and Figueiredo reignited it. They buried light heavyweight post-Jones until Pereira brought it back. And now they're about to make the same damn mistake at heavyweight. Only this time, there might not be a savior. Because Aspinall isn't just holding that belt. He's carrying the entire weight of the division on his back. And unless the UFC wakes the hell up and starts treating the heavyweight roster like it matters, this whole thing burns out. Fast.
Let's cut the fluff. Tom Aspinall is not just some random champion who stumbled into the belt. He's the most dynamic, dangerous, well-rounded heavyweight we've seen in years. The guy moves like a middleweight, strikes like a sniper, wrestles like a Brit-Dagestani hybrid. And he's smart. He doesn't brawl like a meathead. He executes, he adapts, he finishes. You can't name another heavyweight doing all that right now. Not with his speed, not with his precision. And yet somehow, the UFC has left him stranded in the most dried-up division on the damn roster. How the hell do you let this happen? How do you have a generational talent, someone who could actually dominate for half a decade, and you give him a bunch of throwaway names and recycled matchups? You give him Ciryl, can't wrestle to save his life, Gane, maybe Jilton Almeida, who's still proving he belongs, maybe a Pereira move up if the stars align, and then crickets. That's the best the UFC can do? We're wasting a champion. Again. This isn't just about Tom Aspinall. This is about a pattern. The UFC gets lightning in a bottle, then forgets to build a storm around it. They did it with Amanda Nunes, held her hostage with no contenders. They did it with Mighty Mouse, buried him in the prelims. And now it's Tom's turn? Hell no. Not again. The fan base isn't blind. We see the matchups. We see the cards getting thinner. We see heavyweights who haven't fought in 18 months, still sitting in the top 10 like statues. And most of them don't want the smoke. They're content being ranked, not dangerous. You've got fighters coasting, not chasing. That's why the fans are screaming. That's why this podcast exists. Because we're not going to sit here and pretend everything's fine while the division flatlines. We want wars. We want killers. We want stakes. And most of all, we want Tom Aspinall to fight the best. Not just for him, but for us. Because the guy is that good, and we deserve to see what he can really do. The UFC needs to get off its ass. Start recruiting from the PFL, from KSW, from ONE. Offer real contracts to young talent. Start cutting dead weight. If a guy hasn't fought in a year and isn't booked, drop him. Open space. Inject life. This division needs fear, not filler. And listen, if you're a young heavyweight out there in some gym, grinding in silence, thinking, I could beat that guy, now is your moment. Step up. Call out Tom Aspinall. Take the risk. Because the UFC sure as hell needs you, and fast. Because if nothing changes, Tom's gonna waste the best years of his prime on pointless title defenses against slow, low-ranked placeholders. And that's a crime. Not against him, but against every fight fan who still believes in what heavyweight used to be. This isn't about building Tom's resume. This is about keeping the division alive. So tell me, who do you want to see Tom fight next? Should the UFC force Pereira's move to heavyweight? Should Ankalaev make the jump after clearing out light heavyweight? Should they go full chaos mode and sign a monster from outside the UFC? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's make some damn noise. And if you agree, even halfway, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and send this episode to every MMA fan you know. Because if the UFC won't wake up, then we'll wake them up ourselves. I'm out. See you in the next one.